Hi everyone, my name is Taryn and I am part of the Mvmt team, and today I want to talk to you about making an impact despite loneliness. Before I go into my talk, I just want to share with you that I know that this is not something that I have mastered. This is not something that I am a pro at or I know more about than anyone else. This is something that I still struggle with, that God still walks me through on a daily basis some days. But it's something that I feel like God really put on my heart to share with you today. So in the 10 minutes we have, I want to talk about 3 keys that I feel like God wants me to focus on and wants me to talk about today. So we're going to dive right in because, like I said, I have 10 minutes. So the first one is to stop comparing. We live in an age of social media, and I really love to follow really wise women on social media who can post like really encouraging things. I love to listen to their sermons that they give and their advice. And a lot of times one of their popular topics that they like to talk about is community and the importance of it. But then I'll also see that they'll post photos of their communities and their group of friends, and they'll talk about how thankful that they are for these groups of women. And I'll look at the photos and I'll just see that their photo has a few more women in it than what my community looks like. And I'll just start comparing, is this what community should look like? Should I be having a living room full of women when I just have maybe a few women that I'm really close with? And I'll kind of get in my head about what community should look like compared to how other people's community looks like. And that's why my first point today is to stop comparing. We live in this age, like I said, of social media, and a lot of times people will post their highs when we are at our lows. And I'm not just talking about, sadness and loneliness, but I'm just talking about like those lower points of the moments of the lower points of the day. Like we're just sitting on our couch and not doing much, and we'll see someone post about this awesome thing that happened, because that's usually what we post, right? I'm not just posting when I'm sitting on my couch not doing anything. I'm going to post about these really exciting things that are happening. So for me, if I'm seeing a woman post about going out to dinner with 20 women or going on a girls trip, and I'm just sitting on my couch, a lot of times that can maybe make me not feel that great throughout the day. So I like to really take time when I'm feeling lonely, or if I feel like I'm caught in that comparison trap, just to tune out the rest of the world, to tune out how everybody else's life is going, and just focus on my own life. I'm a mom. I have 2 girls, and if you're a mom, you might hear this too, that I'm bored. Every day I feel like they're coming up to me and saying, "Mom, I'm bored." And I feel like my go-to answer is, and maybe it's yours as well, is how can you be bored when you have, and immediately we just start listing out everything that's in the room and everything that they got for their birthday and everything that they just got for Christmas. And you just kind of stare at them like, how can you be bored when you have all this stuff? Well, I feel like when we feel lonely, or if we feel like we're caught in that comparison trap, we can apply that same principle, that same rule, where we can just look through our life and say, how can we feel lonely and how can we feel less than when we have all this stuff? So my first point is stop comparing. And if you feel like that's something you really struggle with, if you feel like you're constantly battling loneliness and constantly battling comparison, I would encourage you today just to write out what you have. List out the friends that you have and the ways that they've impacted your life and poured into your life, and the ways that they bring value into your life, and just focus on that instead of all the noise and all the things around you. So number 1 is stop comparing. Number 2 is start asking. So as I just said, I am a mom, and I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my 4-year-old is getting ready to go to kindergarten. So it's brought back a lot of memories of the first time around of kindergarten with my oldest. And I remember her first day of kindergarten. At our district here, what we do is parents actually ride the bus and go through the first day of school and come home with their kindergartner on the first day. So they're not doing it alone. And it was the first day of school, and she was really excited, and we walked into her classroom, and I look at her and I see the excitement had been replaced with terror, because she had realized she didn't have any friends in her class. She didn't know anybody. So I look at her and she looks at me and she says, "Mom, can you help me make a friend?" So we spent the entire day trying to make a friend, and I think her fear kind of got the best of her, because here we were at the end of the day and we had one more activity to do before we all rode the bus home. And she looked at me and she said, "Mom, can you please help me make a friend?" So I brought her over to the rug and I sat her down next to a girl and I said, "Why don't you introduce yourself?" And I walked away and I look over and I see my daughter say, "Will you be my friend to this little girl?" And the little girl said yes. And my daughter turned around and smiled at me and gave me the thumbs up, and everything was okay. And I just thought back when I was writing this talk for you. I was thinking of that day and I said, you know what? She really had the right idea for that day. She didn't let her fear and the insecurities kind of keep her from being the inviter, because oftentimes when we feel lonely, we kind of sit back and isolate ourselves and we just wait to be invited in. But she went up and approached people and said, "Will you be my friend?" She invited them in. And that's why my second point today is to start asking. Because oftentimes as women, my daughter still has a need for community, but her needs right now is who's she going to sit with at lunch and who she's going to play with at recess. But as her life grows, her need for community is going to grow, just like yours and mine has. So it's very important that we invite people into that growth that we're experiencing. So oftentimes when we feel like we're in a lonely season, we tend to pull back and isolate ourselves. But I think God is encouraging us in those seasons to make a bigger table, to make a bigger circle, to not always wait for other people to ask us, but for us to do the asking. It says in Proverbs 18 verse 1, "One who isolates himself pursues selfish desires." And a lot of times when I feel lonely, I just think about myself and I think about my own needs. And I think God really wants us to take it away from our own focus and say, "I'm feeling lonely. I wonder how many other people feel this way," and start reaching out to people. It says in Luke 6:31, "Treat others the way you want to be treated." And I think sometimes we experience loneliness so we know what it feels like. And then in verse 38, it says, "Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you." And I think maybe a lot of times when we are experiencing any sort of lack, a lot of times we associate this verse when it comes to like giving financially. But I also feel like we need to remember that in our own personal lives when we're feeling a certain way, if we're feeling like we're lacking in a certain area, like that's our time where we're supposed to be giving and blessing others and inviting people into our circles. And that's when we see the blessing. That's when we feel a part of something, when we are giving of ourselves. So one way you can do that is just be reaching out to people and asking, "Hey, is there a need that you have this week that I can meet?" Or, "How are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? Can I talk with you about anything that you're going through?" And I think just focusing more on other people in those seasons. And before we move on, I just want to say, maybe you are on the other end of things and you feel like you do have that huge community, but you're also feeling like a little lonely despite all those women that are in your circle. Well, maybe this is a time for you to take it a step further and ask people, "Hey, is there a need that needs to be met that I can help you with?" And be more vocal and honest. Say, "This is kind of what I need out of relationships." When social distancing started happening and we were kind of asked to stay home, the first thing I did is I texted my mom's group and I said, "All right, guys, I'm the type of person who needs communication. I need to talk to people that are not just 8 and 4-year-olds, but I need to talk to other people who understand what I'm going through, and we can kind of just banter back and forth." And then they would communicate back with me and say, "I'm the same way," or, "Yeah, this is kind of what I'm going to need to get through this time." And we were able to be honest with each other and go deeper. And over these past few weeks, I've had some hard moments, but a lot of moments have been easier because I did start that conversation and asked, "What is it you need?" And I was honest and I said, "This is what I need." It says in Proverbs 11, the world of the generous gets larger and larger, The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. The one who blesses others is abundantly blessed. And that's the message of Proverbs 11. I just want to encourage you today that if you are in that lonely season, just to be generous and be honest and just to give of yourself and open up that circle. Like I said, make that table bigger and just invite people in. So number 1 is to stop comparing. Number 2 is start asking. And lastly, the third one is to stay in his presence. In Mark 14 is the story of Jesus when he was just about to be arrested, and he goes and prays. And he invites his circle, his friends, his disciples to come with him. And he asks, he says, listen, I'm going to pray. Can you just sit here and just stay awake and pray with me? And as we read throughout Mark 14, that they couldn't even do that. Even he communicated his needs, not once, but twice. And they kept falling asleep. And I love how we see that Jesus, instead of kind of just staying in that, like, I'm about to be arrested, I'm about to give my life, I don't even have my friends have my back during this season, he goes to the Father and he prays. And I feel like in our own lives, and I know in my life, and this is the point where I'm talking to myself, and you're welcome to listen, that we forget that the Father is who meets all of our needs. He's the one who is really going to bring us in that true community. You know, he gives us friendship as a gift, and it's necessary, and he wants that for us, but not at the expense of time with him. So if you're searching for joy, or if you're searching for compassion, and you're having a hard time finding that amongst your friends, don't forget that the source for all of that really is Jesus. My husband and I are really big Star Wars fans, and the last one we went and saw, there was this one part where, don't worry, I'm not going to give away the plot or the ending, but there was this one scene where a man and a woman were talking, and the man was very upset and struggling and felt really alone in this war and this battle he was facing. And the woman said, that's how they win, by making you think you're alone. And I feel like that was such a profound statement, because that's how the enemy wins, by making you feel like you're alone, by distracting you with, when you see a photo of a group of women out and you're like, why wasn't I invited to that? Or when you get overlooked in a certain situation and you wonder, am I enough to be a part of this community? Am I enough to be with these people? I think the enemy loves to point that out and make you feel alone. But I just want to remind you that you're not alone, that you have God that's with you every day, every moment, while you're sleeping, while you're awake, when you're alone. If you're feeling like you have a need that's not being met, he is there to meet that need. And all you need to do is be honest with him, and don't be afraid to express your feelings to him, because he already knows them. And sometimes it's that honesty that when we finally talk to him and share our feelings, we really can feel that release and that opening to receive his peace. So I just want to leave you with, our greatest impact will always be when we are in community with God. So before I end our time together, I just want to remind you that if you are in this lonely season, if you struggle with loneliness, that maybe we just need to stop comparing, just to turn off the noise of social media, or to stop focusing on how life looks for everyone else. And like I said before, maybe make that list. Maybe write down what you have and just pour into what you do have and focus on the friendships you do have. Or maybe it's to start asking. Maybe God today is really dropping a name into your heart that is someone that you've noticed maybe doesn't have friends, and God's really inviting you to reach out to that person. Or the group of women that you do have, maybe he's saying, listen, I've called you to kind of be a leader with these women, and I want you right now to reach out to them and really start a deeper community. Or maybe God's saying, hey, listen, I promise your friendships are not going to pass you by, but right now I want to speak with you. I want to pour into you. So whatever area that is, I encourage you that you are not alone, and that you do have a community, and you have a Father that's always with you. So that's all the time we have together. I'm so sad that we can't be in person, but I'm so glad that I was able to talk to you today. on the HerCon online. I hope I see you in 2021. Have a great day.